Chapter 5. My eyes widened at Ames. What do you mean? He stared at whatever was happening on stage behind me, his tormented expression draining all color from his face. In other words, he was scaring the shit out of me. Ames, what are you talking about? Why wouldn't I be able to leave? A bad feeling burrowed in the pit of my stomach as I flicked my gaze from him to the blocked doors. Why hadn't I listened to Mom? The party had taken a weird turn, and I was no longer sure that I could trust the man who'd invited me. Answer me, damn it. Suddenly, the music stopped, and the crowd went quiet. I turned toward the stage that was in the center of the main floor, where Stride and that James Bond guy were speaking quietly. Something was about to happen, and I considered bolting to try to find another exit before I learned what it was. Would anyone stop me if I tried to run? I backed away from Ames a little, planning to do just that. The stage was clearly used for karaoke, as there was a sound system and a monitor set up to display the lyrics. Stride approached a microphone and tapped on it a couple of times. There was an echo in the room as he said, "Hello?" into it. Maybe he was finally going to introduce his future wife to everyone. I took another step backward toward the side hall, where a swarm of fully clothed people was now drifting from. There had to be another exit down there, right? Stride smiled out at the gathering crowd. I just want to thank everyone for coming tonight. It means a lot to me. He gestured to James Bond next to him. And my dad, since it's his birthday. Everyone clapped and cheered, everyone but me and Ames, that is. As you all know, Stride continued, I'm getting married soon, and it's time for me to choose a bride. What? Choose? What did he mean by that? Some people nodded enthusiastically. Others, who were still sitting, leaned forward on the edges of their seats, listening carefully to what he was going to say next. It's an exciting time for me, and an exciting time for a competition. And I don't just want anyone for a wife. She has to be superior to every other woman. As an alpha, I need an alpha queen, and the women competing are the most extraordinary of them all. The perfect mate will be chosen for me on Friday night, the night of the full wolf moon. I can't wait to get started with the full moon games. My mouth flopped open. A competition for marriage. What the hell was going on here? Things were starting to get more than a little public orgy weird. I looked around to see how far the hallway was. Too far. I could make it, though. These legs were made for running. But first, I turned back to Ames. Are you in some kind of weird sex cult with a side of marriage competitions? Because this is really messed up. Note to self, at the very least, do a Google check before going to a party with another man. Now, I've found myself at some ritual sex party where they're probably going to try to convince me to join their cult and then take all my money and my organs. Ames, I prompted when he didn't answer. Every moment he spent avoiding my whispered questions ratcheted up the pressure in my chest. Look, Harlow, he began, his voice raspy and thick. I invited you to this party because I really like you, and I wanted you to be my date. That's it. But things had changed, and Stride's booming voice over the microphone cut him off. I have finally made my decision as to who is going to compete to be my future wife. Once I have announced the lucky ladies, they will join me at my estate where the competition will take place. I blinked in surprise. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. There were women at the party who had actually involved themselves in this sort of madness. Stride took out a list and started reading from it. Jenny, Olivia, Kat, Maria, Emilia, Charlotte, Ella, Every, Sloane. He himself called her an absolute bitch. One at a time, the girls joined stride on stage, standing beside each other. They were beaming, filled with pride that they had been chosen. How were they not deeply offended that he needed a contest in order to choose a bride? Obviously, this sham of a marriage wouldn't be built on love and adoration. And finally, Harlow. I blinked hard. What? People looked around the room trying to figure out who the woman with the unfamiliar name was. Me. It was me. What in the actual fuck? I whispered. It had to be a joke. This couldn't be real. I looked to Ames. You have 5 seconds to tell me what's going on. He shook his head, his whole foundation appearing to crack and crumble before my eyes. I am so unbelievably sorry. Harlow? Stride stared out over the crowd toward me. My stomach churned, and I fought off the urge to throw up. You have to go up there, Ames whispered. He didn't look happy, far from it, and I tried to understand what his role in this whole night was. He said he liked me. So how was it that I was expected to parade myself onto the stage and line up to be Stride's wife? I slapped Ames. Hard enough to whip his head to the side, but not nearly as hard as I wanted to. What on earth had he gotten me involved with? Everyone in the room was now staring at me. Please, go up there, Ames said, as he turned his head back to me, seeming unfazed by my hit. For me. I don't know you shit. Please, he whispered. It will be so much worse for you if you don't. Wow, okay, I hissed. So, you're threatening me now? It's not a threat from me. Harlow, please. What was that supposed to mean? I glanced toward the hallway, where my only other exit could be. Big, burly men now blocked it, too. The air funneled from my lungs at the sudden realization I was trapped. You owe me so big for this, I told Ames. But when I started moving toward the stage, the look of relief on his face twisted my nerves even more. What was I getting myself into? My face heated as I neared the stage. Everyone seemed to know what was going on except me. Stride was grinning at me, but it felt forced, fake. My hand still stung from slapping Ames, but it also tingled from that same electric energy I felt when I touched him at the bookstore. It chased up and down my skin, peeling away at my already raw nerves. I put myself in line with the other ladies, with a glance at Sloane, who looked absolutely horrified to find me there. In fact, all of the girls were staring, at a loss, and I couldn't say I blamed them. They knew I didn't belong there, and I couldn't even understand why I was here in the first place. I hadn't agreed to any of this. Meet the women who will compete for my hand in marriage, Stride announced. The room exploded with applause, the sound deafening. Is this some kind of joke? Sloane spat at me. I didn't bother to answer her since I didn't exactly know how to. Let me make something clear to you, bitch, she hissed. Her face twisted in rage. Everyone wants me to be Stride's bride. So if you think you have a shot at this, you're delusional. I turned to her slightly and glared at her, not bothering to respond. I didn't want to be here, and now I had to deal with a basic bitch bully who thought this was high school? Fuck that. We are going to eat you alive, she said to me, and I turned away from her. My pulse echoed between my ears, and the room spun around me. I was in way over my head at this point. and I didn't even know how I'd managed to find myself in such a bizarre situation. Couldn't I just say no? Would they allow it? They certainly couldn't keep me here against my will. Could they? I searched for Ames in the crowd and quickly found his pale face. From his expression alone, the answers to all of my questions weren't good ones. The applause ended and Stride started talking about packs working together to continue the celebrations and other absolute nonsense I didn't get. Confused, I started to ask something of the girl on my other side. Not Sloane, obviously. When the girl's face started to change. It was slight at first, starting with the widening of her eyes and the stretching of her mouth. But then her body contorted in ways that couldn't possibly be normal. Her shoulders widened, her hands turned into something closer to claws, her feet lengthened. Horror detonated in my chest, in my head, until I didn't know if I was going to throw up or pass out. I had to be imagining this. Or had I been drugged? I hadn't drunk anything, but maybe there was something being pumped through the air vents. There had to be an explanation, especially since when I looked around the room in a panic, I found everyone else changing the same way. Tears filled my eyes as I watched the partygoers shift into wolves. Actual wolves. Their bodies twisted in weird positions, their eyes changed color, and they dropped to all fours. Fur crept up on their bodies, and their teeth lengthened into fangs. I was shaking then, tears rolling down my cheeks, and I was convinced that I'd completely lost my mind. Frantically, I searched the room trying to find Ames again. There he was, a little farther from the stage now. He looked panicked, but still like the Ames I'd first met, like a man not shifting the way the others were. Why had he brought me here? Could he have known this was going to happen? I mouthed, "What's happening?" A look of utter heartbroken devastation crossed his face. I felt his agony and loss all at once, and the force of it almost knocked me down. But then, his face started to change too. And as he turned into a wolf right before my eyes, complete with a sandy brown coat, darkness seeped into the edges of my vision. I hit the floor of the stage hard, and the last thing I heard was ominous howling. Chapter 6. I tried to swallow, but my throat was bone dry. I groaned as I rolled over, realizing that I was in a bed. Putting my hand to my head, I opened my eyes slowly. Where the hell was I? I had the brief thought that I had been drugged, and now I was in a lot of trouble. Like, a lot. That thought completely vanished when I focused on a chandelier above me. I narrowed my eyes until my vision cleared. I slowly sat up in bed and took in my surroundings. The room was fancy, but in a stately way. It was luxurious, but also vintage, like it had been decorated 100 years ago. The bed I sat on had a plush silk quilt, big enough that I could get lost in it. The room was filled with a chase lounge, a vanity, an armoire, lots of other extravagant things I would probably never use, and bars on all the windows. My pulse thrummed a panicked beat throughout my head. The room was fit for a royal prison, but I definitely wasn't a royal, and I refused to be a prisoner. I had to find someone in charge and ask them to bring me home, because one thing was for sure, I was not staying here. I could not involve myself in some kind of disgusting competition. There was a soft click, and then a door opened to a room I assumed was the bathroom. A beautiful woman stepped out who looked almost exactly like Rihanna. She was tall and lean, her hair as black as night and swept up into a low bun. Her eyes were her most striking feature, a deep green that popped right out of her skin. She looked like she could be a supermodel, and I wondered what the hell she was doing here. Hello? She turned to me, as if surprised to see me. Harlow, you're awake. I just finished filling up the bath for you to have a soak. I blinked at her. Excuse me? Who are you? I'm your personal maid, and I'll be taking care of you while you're here. And that would explain the maid outfit then, I supposed. I shook my head. I don't need a maid. I need my mom, an exorcist, literally anyone. Is there someone I could talk to? She gestured for me to follow her into the bathroom. There's no time. We have to start getting you ready for tonight's opening celebration. Tonight? Wait, what day is it? It's Sunday. Sunday afternoon. Which meant I'd been out for almost 2 whole days? I swallowed thickly. I need to call my mom. She must be worried sick. I have to tell her where I am and apologize to her for being an idiot. I should never have gone to that party. I should have listened to her. I got up from the bed and looked around the room for my purse or a landline. Do you know where my things are? The maid shook her head. So helpful, this one. How do you know my name? I asked her suddenly. She tilted her head at me. Do you know where you are, Harlow? Okay. Was she not hearing me? Was I speaking in tongues again? I blew out a slow breath, wishing for patience since the maid hadn't kidnapped me herself. No, I don't know where I am, but I could hazard a guess. Is it an insane asylum or something? I wouldn't be surprised if it was. I feel like I'm losing my mind, and maybe I am. The maid sighed and shook her head, smoothing her hands down her wrinkle-free maid's skirt that reached her knees. No, it's not an insane asylum. My name is Annecy, and I'll be here to help you as much as possible. Do you understand that you need to listen to me so I can help you? I don't understand anything, least of all why I would need a maid. Can you help me call my mom? I begged. Her mouth sagged into a frown. No, I can't. You're not going to be able to do that. What do you mean? Panic rose in my chest and threatened to choke me once it reached my throat. Dread pumped through my veins, hot and furious. She must be worried about me. She's going to call the police looking for me. Annecy slowly shook her head. I don't think they'll find you here. You're at Alpha King Stride's estate, and you're to compete to be his bride. King? My mouth fell open. I'd use a lot of words to describe him, but not that one. He's a king? She smiled. Yes, women all over have dreamed of becoming his bride. You're very lucky to have been chosen. Lucky? No. Can't I just go home? Annecy winced and scratched the back of her neck. That's really not how it works. It's supposed to be an honor to have been chosen. Stride would be deeply offended if you didn't want to be involved. You don't want to offend King Alpha, do you? Oh, God. She was part of the cult, too. She looked sympathetic, at least, and this time she tried to sound gentle as she spoke. I know this must all be confusing for you, but I assure you that you're not going crazy. All of this is very real. Yeah, that didn't make me feel any better. What are you talking about? Are you saying I wasn't imagining or hallucinating that a whole room full of people turned into wolves? No, you weren't. Shifters are real, and you were chosen to see that. I laughed. It had to be a joke. It was a joke. But then, within seconds, my beautiful maid shape-shifted into a gray wolf with black paws. My laughter died completely. I fell onto the bed, stunned, feeling like I might cry all over again. I had never seen a shift happen that fast. Not that I was any expert on it or anything, but most of the shifters at the party seemed to take their time. I reached towards her, my hands shaking, but stopped before actually touching her. It wasn't real. It wasn't real. I swallowed down bile, fighting off the urge to vomit. She slowly approached me, and I set my hand on her head, feeling the course further. Her eyes softened under my touch, and I stroked her head once. This was unbelievable. And yet here I was, petting a wolf shifter. What was happening? Okay, I whispered. I believe you. She shifted back, just as quickly as she had before. How did you do that so fast? I asked. At the party, everybody took their time. I barely saw your body change before you were a wolf. She shrugged her thin shoulders. Everyone shifts differently. For some, it's hard, but I've been doing it for a long time. I barely have to focus on it now, and I shift with very little effort. It's as easy as breathing. She might have been trying to comfort or convince me, but all she'd done was confirm what I already knew. I did not belong here. I want to go home, I said, my voice wobbling slightly. She pursed her lips and gazed down at the floor, looking pained. That's not going to happen. I'm sorry. Tears spilled down my cheeks. Please, I whispered. The maid went quiet, which made the situation hurt so much more. Mom was probably sick with worry, and it was all my fault. I should have listened to her. She was smarter than me. She knew what was right. I had gone against her wishes, and now I was uncertain if I would ever see her again. Annecy flicked her striking gaze up at me again. Are you human? I blinked, releasing more tears because they would not stop. Of course I am. Why? She shook her head hard. No reason. I don't understand any of this, I told her. I don't want to either. I just want to go home. She reached out and patted my arm, her touch warm and comforting. Please don't cry, Harlow. It's only going to make your eyes puffy, and we need to start getting ready. Ready? Ready for what? I wiped at my face, trying to slow my breathing. I just wanted to crawl under the quilt on the bed and close my eyes. I wasn't in the mood for anything else. We have to get you ready for the competition. I forced a humorless chuckle. This is ridiculous. Not to mention medieval. It's how things are done, she explained, speaking quickly as if to get this out of the way fast. We were supposed to be in a hurry after all. Connolly Jackson, Stride's dad, was supposed to be the next alpha after his brother died, but he was denied. Instead, the honor was given to Stride. Stride is young, but his uncle, for whatever reason, didn't want to pass down the kingdom to Connolly. Now that Stride is in line to be alpha of the pack, he must take a wife. But why, though? I asked. Why does the alpha have to take a wife? Because a man is only as strong as the woman behind him. I nodded. Out of everything she'd told me so far, that was the only part I could easily agree with. It's pack tradition that the full moon games take place the week before a full moon in order to have the best wife at the alpha's side. As arrogant as Stride seems at times, none of this is his idea. In fact, he wanted to wait until his birthday next month, or even a couple months later. He would rather not get married at his age, but it's tradition. It's just the way it is. She gestured again for me to follow her into the bathroom. Anyways, we have to get you ready. We have a lot of work to do. I threw my hands up in the air. What's that supposed to mean? She grinned, her green eyes twinkling. It means you're getting a makeover. Big time. I have a whole team and everything. She gave me a long once-over. And we're going to need them. Okay, I'm going to try not to be offended by that. She shrugged, already turning toward the bathroom. We need to get started. You have to be presentable for the full moon games, and we don't have a lot of time. You must be perfect, so you're the chosen one. Maybe you can make it so I'm not. Annecy turned to stare at me with wide, horrified eyes. But this is my job. Instantly, I felt terrible for even suggesting that not-so-crazy idea to her, since she was, in fact, just doing her job. A knock sounded at the door. There was no time to tell whoever it was to go away before a woman barged inside. She started chattering to Annecy that we had no time to waste and other things I couldn't quite catch because she spoke so fast. She was a mousy woman with dull brown hair, shrewd brown eyes, and pallid skin. She wore horn-rimmed glasses and a dowdy dress that reached to the floor. This was my makeover lady? Annecy looked anxiously from me to the mousy lady. Are we ready to make over our little human? The mousy woman asked. I just looked at her. Thanks for the reminder. Yes, we're good to go, Annecy said to the lady. Harlow, this is Josephine. She will be assisting in the makeover. And if I don't actually want a makeover? I asked. Josephine narrowed her eyes at me. Excuse me, young lady. You most certainly do. And arguing is just going to make this a harder process. We don't need the hassle. My mouth dropped open. She snapped her fingers and a bunch of women entered the room from the hallway. All right, ladies, Josephine began. We have a lot of work to do, and I do mean a lot. I glared at the woman. She made me sound like I was in dire need of a makeover, but surely I wasn't that bad. Was I? They had brought a team in to make me over so they could parade me in front of Stride, and the whole thing made my stomach turn. I didn't know what to do about the situation. But one thing was clear. I wasn't going to just walk out of the full moon games. Chapter 7. The women buzzed around me like tiny worker bees and immediately dragged me to the bathroom, where there was a large tub filled with water that smelled like lemongrass and water lilies. Don't be shy, one of the women said and then giggled. Perfect. Thankfully, I was used to locker rooms, so I quickly undressed. I stepped into the water gingerly, and the heat hit me immediately. It was inferno hot. Were they trying to burn the skin right off me? I slowly settled into the bath and waited as my skin adapted to the heat. Two maids started rinsing and shampooing my hair, and it took everything inside me not to start screaming. I was convinced I was dreaming. This was not real life. There was just no way. Once I was washed to their preference, I was lifted out of the tub. They couldn't even let me do that alone. Was Cinderella secretly not all that impressed by the constant doting and fawning either? Because I sure wasn't. Josephine walked into the bathroom with Annecy in tow, just as two women started to blow dry my hair. No, that will not do. Pluck her. Excuse me? I asked, but everyone ignored me. Everyone but Annecy. She smiled warmly. Just let them do their work, and it'll be all over soon. Yeah. Why did that sound like a threat? They tweezed my eyebrows and gave me an entire facial before acting marginally satisfied with my appearance. After my skin was rejuvenated to their liking, they turned me back around to look in the vanity's mirror. I was surprised to find that my skin looked glowy and supple. Even I was impressed. Josephine clapped her hands together. Makeup? My chair was turned around again, and Annecy sat down in front of me with a handful of brushes and palettes. I didn't understand why they couldn't just let me go. All the other girls in the competition seemed to want to be here, while I was mortified. Call me crazy, but I wasn't a big fan of arranged marriages. I didn't even know Stride, who seemed like a regular douche dumpster. Besides, seeing the heartbroken look on Ames's face when I was on stage made me want to keel over. And then there was the entire wolf shifter situation. That didn't help any. Annecy looked into my eyes, seeming to consider which colors and palettes to use. She quickly applied foundation, powder, and bronzer. Just try to relax. I know it's a lot to take in, but this is a great opportunity for you. Stride is an alpha king, and he would take very good care of you if you're chosen as his wife. I stared at her in a, "Are you kidding me?" kind of way. Yeah, I can just imagine what my mom will think when I invite her to the wedding. Annecy frowned as though my line of thinking was incomprehensible. But if she liked him so much, why couldn't she be in the competition? Hell, she could take my place. My eyeshadow was next, plus a little liner, blush, and some lipstick. Then it was time to curl my naturally straight hair. It was something I rarely did since I liked keeping things simple, but Josephine and her team had made it clear I didn't have a say in the matter. I guess we'll just have to deal with the purple color for now. Josephine glanced at her watch and clapped her hands again. Past time to get dressed. Go! The ladies quickly ushered me back into the bedroom. Annecy led the way toward a long, black, form-fitting gown with a long split up the side hanging from the inside of the closet door. A sheer bra and matching panties hung from a separate hanger in front of it. The dress was far too sexy, but I already knew I had no choice but to wear it. I stepped forward, and the ladies put my underwear on for me. Yeah, that was a first. Then they placed the dress near my feet so I could step into it. They brought it up to my shoulders and zipped it up the back, and the delicate fabric felt as soft as air. The ladies flitted around me to make sure everything was where it should be, and my mouth dropped when one of them adjusted my breasts. Well then, I muttered. Next time you could buy me dinner first. You look perfect, Harlow. Just perfect, Annecy declared. The ladies urged me toward a full-length mirror inside the spacious closet, and I gasped. I had not expected such a change. It was me, for sure, but a different version of me. Half of my purple hair was clipped into a glamorous updo, and the rest curled below my shoulders. My eyes really popped with the makeup and the contouring Annecy had done. Well, compared to her, I couldn't contour for shit, even though I always thought I could. The dress accentuated my curves, and the slit showed off just enough leg to be naughty, but still offer a side of classy. Damn, I breathed. Someone better blow me, 'cause I'm hot. Some of the ladies laughed. Others nodded in agreement. All right, it's time to go. Annecy handed me a pair of black high heels. Here's the finishing touch. I cringed as I took them. I have no idea how I'm going to walk in these. I slipped into the heels and wobbled around the room, imagining I looked exactly like a baby giraffe taking its first steps. Josephine's horrified expression confirmed this. Walk heel to toe, and for God's sake, slow down. This isn't a race. I tried. Really, I did. Annecy, on the other hand, started to laugh, her green eyes twinkling. It's fine. You're doing fine. Let's go before we're late. I hobbled, heel toe to the door, and walked out into a wide, long hallway with Annecy leading the way since I was trying to go slow. The rest of the crew stayed behind. A huge, sweeping staircase led the way to the main floor. What should I be expecting? I asked, eyeing what looked like the front door as we passed. 2 big guards stood just inside and pretended to ignore us. Annecy slowed her pace to answer me. Dinner, drinks, and schmoozing? Just be yourself. Why do that when it had landed me here? Maybe I'd get an opportunity to escape. We made our way to a massive, crowded ballroom. When we got there, the room quieted as I walked in. Strangers dressed in their finest openly stared. I looked around self-consciously for a familiar or even friendly face, but I didn't find a single one. Annecy, still inside the ballroom doorway, pointed to the stage where the other girls were waiting. It seemed I was the last to arrive. Sloane was already giving me daggers. Annecy gave me an encouraging smile and then motioned for me to go on up. Dread turned my stomach into stone. Slowly concentrating on each step, I made my way to the stage. My gaze stuck to my high heels. I went up the stairs on shaky feet, while all eyes bored holes into me and pebbled my arms with goosebumps. I went to stand alongside Sloane since that was the only empty spot, because of course it was. The hate radiating off of her practically singed the air. Her nostrils flared. Was she smelling me? She turned to the girl next to her and whispered about my rank odor. I sighed loudly, already done with, well, everything. I know, another girl whispered. I don't know what it is, but her scent is kind of fascinating. What the fuck? Just kill me now and get it over with. Sloane turned to me again, her cool eyes locking onto mine. It's a joke that you're here, she hissed. You're not even a shifter. You're lowly. You're nothing but a human embarrassment, she snorted as she looked at me. You're not of good breeding, and you're clearly only here for a fuck. I looked her straight in the eyes. What bothers you more, Sloane, that a human is competing against you, or that you think you'll lose to one? She snapped her head back in obvious surprise. So, I could get to her after all. I turned away from her, then with a smile on my face. She stayed quiet after that. Good dog. Now that I had a chance to catch my breath, I was able to take a look around the room from where I stood on stage. It brought to mind something from a historical movie, like a Jane Austen story come to life, with the formal furnishings, the big ornate paintings on the walls, and several crystal chandeliers sparkling above. I wouldn't have been surprised if there was a horse-drawn carriage outside the tall, arched windows, all of them strategically barred. Not exactly my cup of tea or coffee. The women wore fine, expensive-looking gowns similar to the one I wore, and the men wore tuxes like they were attending some fancy gala. Butlers strode around the room serving the guests, and everything was so proper that it felt stifling. It was like I was about to be presented to a queen, and I supposed I was in a way. I'd had no idea that Stride was a king, but the formality of the event and my surroundings were all making sense now. A gorgeous blonde with what looked like a jagged scar in the shape of a wolf's fangs on her neck stepped up onto the stage. And without so much as a glance at the line of women on stage with her, she stepped up to the podium with a microphone attached to it. "Welcome, everyone. Let the full moon games begin."